Okay, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a watch for you that has been a long time coming for my collection. It is, of course, from Helson, which is a Hong Kong-based micro brand, and I'm a big fan of theirs. They're definitely right up there with their sister brand Armida as far as being kind of one of the forum darlings that are out there in the dive watch community. So a little bit about dive watches and some key features and common design language. In a dive watch, you're going to be looking for water resistance, normally through a screw down crown, something tough, legible, of course. You want that dive time bezel, and if possible, a diver's extension is always nice to have. Now, this particular model is new for 2016, although it's kind of, the Shark Diver brand has been around for a while, and this model has been around for a while. This is the 40 millimeter, but some of the changes is, they've gone through different iterations. They've had a sapphire bezel. They went to the Miyota 9015 movement, but now recently with ETA movements starting to become more readily available, and with kind of the markups that are happening with Miyota 9015s, you're starting to see ETA movements start resurging again. So this model actually is kind of a throwback model in that it has an ETA movement and it has the aluminum bezel that is fully loomed, which a lot of people preferred. I think that it is a little bit more cohesive as far as the design goes, and everything really ties in with the dial. So although the other iterations you may have seen that are out there, I'm still a fan of those pieces too. I think they're great. I even have my own kind of custom variant that I had made in hopes of a future production run, which who knows, we'll still see if that happens. And needless to say, I'm a big fan of this watch in many different specs, but this particular spec is one that I've always wanted to get my hands on. So when they became available again, I could not resist. So let's go ahead and zoom out here and pick this guy up and talk a little bit more about these specs. So it is a 40 millimeter watch, and although it has it has extremely wide lugs, as you can see, the dial itself and the bezel proportions are really, really nice, and that's what really helps this watch wear really tastefully. And as you can see here, it only has a 12 millimeter height, and I think that's really fantastic. It is really a thin little watch. I know it's bulky and chunky, so you don't really equate that with thinness, but 12 millimeters is actually pretty darn good, especially considering how thick this actual bezel is. I mean, they could have probably made it thinner. And this case back, I mean, one of the things I like is that they didn't do the huge slab side. They kept the case, and then they have, of course, the case back is on the back, and then the bezel sits on top versus kind of one fatter integrated piece, because that's what's going to help this wear a lot more comfortably. So that's very, very nice. Now, of course, this is 31L surgical stainless steel. The crystal is 3 millimeters thick. It's a sapphire. It's flat with inner AR coating, which I'm not sure that the studio lights are gonna let me pick up, but it does have really nice AR coating on it. And also the shade of blue is definitely lightened up by these studio lights. So don't be fooled, if you think that this is a little bit too bright. I'd say see it in person, because the hue to me is really absolutely fantastic. It's just a great blue, and I'm not sure. Oh, look at that. You can see it lighting up. That's how strong the Lume is. Fully lit area. Still seeing the Lume glow, which is nice. Now, the bezel is unidirectional, so it goes one way here. Nice 120 click. It has this nice coated aluminum engraved insert, which is fully loomed, so you can actually read all of those indexes under the water, in the dark, wherever you may be with lower visibility. So that's really a nice feature to have. Definitely ties in with the big, more of a tool diver, more of a functional piece as far as that side of the house goes, in that theme. So really, really nicely done. Of course, it has a screw down crown, but one of the nice things about this crown is that it is signed with that very nicely executed Helson H. It has these really cool, chunky crown guards, because this is a pretty large crown. The crown guards have this really cool kind of Art Deco feel to them in their design and their presence. I just think it's really, really nice. Really finely executed and really flows. This one of the things I like about this piece is that it's a cohesive design. Top to bottom, this piece, everything kind of just goes together. So let's go ahead and take a look at the case back. Ooh, if I can pop this open with the gloves on. All right. So as you can see, really, really nicely done. Let's see if I can get this a little bit close. Here we go. Really nicely executed case back. It's just solid and etched, but it has those specs there. And of course, as you can see, its movement is the automatic ETA 2824. Really nice, very comfortable. And the winding action on the 2824 is definitely more noticeable. It's just more of a tactile experience versus the 9015, which I'm a huge fan of. I really like that movement, but it's nice to have. I guess this is just a more rare variant because it has the 2824, which for me had some appeal, but it's not like I think that the 9015 is inferior or anything like that. I think it's actually a little bit better than a 2824. But one of the things that I like about the 2824 is that it winds, the rotor winds, both directions versus just the one direction. And then also the winding action on the 2824, I feel like just gives you a little bit more feedback. It's not as refined as like a Valjoux 7750 as far as, the hand winding goes, but it's really nice. So I'm a really big fan of that. So water resistance, as you can see, 500 meters or 1,640 feet. Now, the bracelet, as you can see, is really, really nicely done, and it starts with these great screw-in, what's the word I'm looking for? Instead of spring bars. So basically, where a spring bar would normally be, which is kind of the weakest point in any bracelet, instead you have these really great screw-in bars, which are just fantastic and just add to so much strength. And then as you can see, the links themselves are also solid and screw in H links, which is nice because the brand is Helson, so it really ties in. Again, it's cohesive. Then you have the milled clasp, which is really nice. The fold over part isn't just stamped, so that's really nice. It does not have a diver's extension. They do have ratcheting clasps for the larger 45 and 42 millimeter models, but honestly, this it wears a bit larger, so the 42 wears even larger and the 45 wears even larger than that. So for me, this is really the sweet spot, and as far as kind of refinement and sportiness goes, so really a big fan of that. And as you can see, it's a non-tapering bracelet, but in this case, it really goes with the aesthetic. So I do prefer a tapering bracelet, but I gotta say, this one is done right for as far as non-tapering bracelets go. So, and of course, you also do have these 4 micro adjustment holes for a better fit. So let's go ahead and get this on wrist. Oh, technical difficulties. I put it on upside down. All right, now that it's right side up, as you can see, really, really nice on my 7 1/4 inch wrist. Might seem a little big because of those lugs, but in all honesty, this thing wears just about perfectly. Really, really nice. Those turn down lugs hug the wrist there pretty nicely. It's just a really comfortable piece. And then because of that slight, convex shape there on the case back, it gives you room, gives you a little bit more room to flex the wrist. although this is, kind of a wider profile because of those, maxi style lugs, reminiscent of, of course, the Rolex Submariner, which, 9 out of 10 dive watches are reminiscent of the Submariner in some way, shape, or form. One of the really cool things about the shark diver is if you look on the Rolex forums, there are a lot of threads about the Helson shark diver. It's kind of the beater watch of choice for Submariner wearers. So that's one of the things that really draw me to this piece. It's just really cool, and it's not trying to be anything more than it is, but what it is absolutely fantastic and amazingly executed. So this thing has really classic proportions, and then you have that kind of tool watch plus a little bit of refinement, really fine balance there of kind of form and function. There are a lot of different model variants, of course. There is the 40 millimeter with a bunch of different color options, the 42, the 45, there's brass, there's bronze, there's titanium, there's even now forged carbon fiber. So this is really a great line of watches and a great family of watches from the Helson brand. Now, as far as comparable models go, I do have a comparable model that I'll pull out right here. I'd say, you could probably compare it to the Armida A1, and you could compare the big brother Helson to the bigger brother Armida, but these are kind of the more modestly sized. This is the 42 variant, and this is the 40. And as you can see, the case shape makes a big difference, right? As far as size goes, let me pop this off the wrist here. As far as size goes, they are very similar. This is a 42 that wears a bit smaller because of the K-shape, and this is a 40 that wears a bit bigger because of the K-shape. And then also, of course, this is an aftermarket bracelet that does taper. Armida does offer a bracelet that looks very, very similar but does not taper. So just kind of be advised on that one. But as you can see, these kind of the daddies of these watches have been battling it out for, kind of the lord of Microbrand Lume. Now, there are many that are in the Armida's corner and say that this kind of has the best Lume in the business. And then you got here, the Helson, another camp of people that are like, hey, the shark diver's got the brightest and best Lume. These both come out of the same factory, so they're sister brands. As far as application goes, they're both applied exactly as good as the other, and we can do that by zooming in here and doing a little Lume off for you in this video. So let's go ahead, get these in here. Oh, nice. Get them nice lined up. Let's go ahead and charge these bad boys with a little bit of black light so we can see that really fantastic initial brightness that they are just so well known for. And of course, they do have, this is C3 Superluminova, so it does have some great staying power as well. But I mean, kind of, that's it. I mean, look at that. That is shockingly bright. That is just the business. You can't beat that. I mean, maybe the camera could be compensating in some other ways to make it not look as bright as I'm seeing it right now off camera. But I mean, this is pretty legendary stuff, guys. I mean, this is very nice, bright Lume. Let me see if I can just put the watch this way and see if I can catch. As you can see the reflection that it's giving off. I mean, in person here, I can see actually a lot of light bouncing off, but it's just not getting picked up by the camera. But I mean, this is just insanely bright. Let me see if maybe if I put a little white little watch microfiber cloth there. Maybe you'll be able to see some of that. Oh, look, that's picking it up better. Look at that. That is how bright this is. It is projecting light. So, of course the camera's trying to focus and do kind of the crazy things right now. But that is just an example of how fantastically bright these watches are. And I mean, these, if you were to look, if that's one of your key criteria, is I want something that is going to burn bright. I mean, literally, this morning I was wearing the Helson, and I just walked in from outside in the morning, about 5 minutes to go turn on the car to warm it up. Walked inside, and this thing was just blasting my eyes as soon as I came back indoors, to come and, you know, grab my lunch and then run back out. That thing was very bright. I mean, I went outside, I was setting up the Christmas lights, and the sun was going down. My wife automatically noticed my wrist and said, "Oh, that's cool." Like, because it was just so bright, and I didn't have to charge anything. It was just from being outside. Of course, yeah, I'm charging it now because it's the middle of the night and I'm showing you guys this video, so I am charging them up so you guys can get an idea, because the camera is going to try to offset that, you know, that balance and try to smooth everything out instead of showing you kind of how high in contrast and brightness these really are. I mean, they're just fantastic. So as far as which one's brighter, which one's better, which one's the king, I mean, it's really hard to say. I'd say the Helson probably has more surface area in general, as far as where the lume is, and if they're applied equally, then you would just say whichever one has more of this fantastic lume applied onto it is probably going to be the winner. So I guess you could say the Helson. But, you know, neither of these are losers by any means. I mean, they're just a really cool new breed, I would almost say, in the Microbrand community. I mean, these watches are picking up a lot of steam. There are people where they have like every Helson watch that was ever released, or every Armida, or multiples. So, I mean, that just kind of goes to tell you that these are pieces that do have, you know, there is passion behind them. And yeah, they don't have the lineage or, you know, the horological importance that some other pieces may have. But what they do have is kind of that magic that made the original Rolex Submariner or the Blancpain 50 Fathoms so great, which is really they were functional pieces. They were tools. And these watches tie back to that. And of course, one of the things they share is that they are original designs. I called this kind of a modern SKX, but it's by no means SKX homage, you know, and this, you know, I'd say it does have some, of course, some similarities with a Submariner, but also, I mean, there's a lot of other watches that do. I'd say probably as far as closely resembling anything, I'd say it looks a bit like my Longines Hydro Conquest with the H links and the wide shoulders and those crown guards, but at the same time it also looks a little bit like the Stowa Pro Diver. So, you know, I think it's just a really fun and fantastic piece, and you know, I'm really glad that I was finally able to grab one of these, especially in the spec. Originally, I was a little bit thrown off. Wasn't crazy about the handset and the dial, but you know, kind of, I'm starting to mellow out a bit, you could say, and I'm really learning to kind of appreciate watches for what they are. I think once you start having more watches, you don't necessarily look for the perfect watch. You start really accepting some of those quirks and differences, and you know, what makes this watch worth having, you know, although I already have a bunch of dive watches, a bunch of blue dive watches, right? So it's one of those things, and I really can appreciate it, and I'm just a huge fan of the brand, and I definitely, you know, they have a great community of fans, and if you check out my Instagram, you'll probably follow a couple of hashtags, and you'll find a lot of cool pictures of these watches doing great things, whether somebody's taking it out on a camping trip, or they're diving, or, you know, doing parkour. I mean, these these watches are built for today's lifestyle, and they come in at a very reasonable price tag, which I think I may have skipped. So you can buy these directly from Helson at $669. And of course, they do often have deals. I think right now there's the Christmas deal. That's another additional 10% off. So it comes in right about $600, which is very, very nice. I think this is well worth it, especially with that ETA movement, just because, let's face it, we all know that ETA just holds a little bit better value than Miyota movements, although Miyota movements have come a long way. And then of course, you know, Seiko movements like the Armida actually had a lower beat count Seiko movement in it, but you know, those are just cheaper to come by, but at the same time, you'd probably end up replacing a Seiko movement versus just having it worked on. With an ETA, you can take this into a competent jeweler or watchmaker, and they should be able to service it for you, because the 2824 is kind of the blueprint as far as watchmaking goes. For if you're going to be able to service anything, chances are you're going to be able to service an ETA 2824. So with that said, I gotta say that, you know, bottom line, it's a lot of watch for the money, and, you know, and even at the price that it is, it's a fantastic piece, and I think it's definitely well worth it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do hit like. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys. Bye.